Jalen Hurts has been one of the most scrutinized athletes in America ever since his college days. But as of right now, none of those previous criticisms mean anything. Jalen Hurts went from a 4-star in high school to benched in college to an overdraft in the second round to Super Bowl MVP. The rise of Jalen Hurts is truly one of the most unbelievable rises in NFL history. But how did he do it? How did Jalen Hurts go from just another fun college player to one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? Hurts played for his dad's high school football team, and he famously squatted 500 pounds as a sophomore in high school. He accumulated 50 total touchdowns as a senior in high school. Hurts was a 4-star, dual-threat quarterback, and he committed to Alabama. Alabama likely viewed Hurts as an outstanding athlete with potential, but thought he might be held back at the college level due to not having an elite arm. He was a likely backup for his first few years in college, but instead, with little to no development at the college level, Hurts was forced into the spotlight almost immediately. By the second game of his freshman year at Alabama, the starting quarterback was benched due to poor play, and Hurts became the starter almost by default. A true freshman starting at quarterback was almost unheard of before at Alabama. But once Hurts took over as a starter, he never looked back. With immense pressure on his shoulders as a freshman, he had an incredible season against the odds with 36 total touchdowns to just 9 interceptions. Hurts capped off one of the greatest freshman seasons in college football history with an SEC championship and just lost the national championship by 4 points. The expectations for Bama were incredibly high for Hurts' sophomore season as they were favorites to win the Natty. Alabama realized that Hurts wasn't just another athletic quarterback. Instead, he was the future of the best team in college football. Fast forwarding once again into Hurts' sophomore year, he was able to back up his freshman campaign with another strong season. Alabama had a great year and found themselves back in the national championship. Hurts finished the year with 25 touchdowns to just 1 interception. Hurts' career was on the fast track. So far, he had barely lost in his career, whether that was at the high school level or the college level. And as everyone knows, Bama would not lose the Natty this year either. But everyone also knows the story of the infamous 2017 College Football National Championship.
Effectively, we haven't been able to throw it effectively at all. So, and I don't think it's just all the quarterback. I think it's the whole group.
And here it is. Tua Tagovailoa, a true freshman from Hawaii, gets the second half start.
I was watching this 3 for 8 for 21 yards. It was one of the most awful, deplorable, embarrassing, impotent performances that I have ever seen.
Right after the game ended, Jalen Hurts, you'll never play starting quarterback for the University of Alabama again.
Find a better kid who's better thrower than you, you're done.
It was only 13-0 when Jalen Hurts was benched in favor of Tua Tagovailoa, who people didn't even know at the time. But why? Why was Jalen Hurts benched in favor of Tua? To backtrack on Hurts' career up until this championship game, it's true that Hurts did a lot of winning, but he also wasn't asked to do a whole lot. The offense around him with college star running back Damian Harris and future first-round wide receiver Calvin Ridley was perfect for Hurts. As much as people recognize the success Alabama had under Hurts, people also realized Hurts was mostly just a product of the system, which was why he never got huge NFL hype at Alabama. Hurts being benched his sophomore year was a reality check, but instead of crying about it or complaining, he kept his cool, stayed on the bench, and cheered for his team in one of the most bizarre national championship games ever, which, by the way, of course, Alabama ended up winning. In 2017, Tua unsurprisingly remained the starting quarterback, with Hurts coming in on occasion. But Hurts got another big opportunity in the SEC championship game when Tua was injured, and Hurts led a comeback to win. So far in his career, it was clear that Jalen Hurts was able to take advantage of his opportunities. But despite this high note near the end of Hurts' tenure in Alabama, the doubters were still there. Just when it seemed like Hurts was going to finish his college career at Alabama, everything came to a screeching halt in the sophomore season. As much as Hurts didn't complain about being benched, he also realized that Alabama found their new guy, and that guy was Tua. Jalen Hurts needed to find a new home for his senior year. It needed to be a place that would ask their quarterback to throw more than Bama did, because it was time for Hurts to start putting out tape for the NFL. Jalen Hurts took his talents to Oklahoma, where he immediately became the starting quarterback. Fast forwarding once again, in his final year of eligibility, when he needed to have a big year, Hurts stepped up to the plate and had a monster season at OU. He finished with 52 total touchdowns and over 5,000 total yards. Hurts was finally in a position to be the driving force of an offense, and not just a game manager like he was at Alabama. OU was able to really use his dual threat ability, which people have raved about for so many years, and Hurts went from an NFL draft afterthought to a potential mid to early round draft pick. If it weren't for Joe Burrow having the greatest quarterback season in college football history, Hurts also would have been the Heisman winner in 2019 as well, but he came up just short, finishing in second place. Even though the season was a huge success, people still had their doubts about whether or not Hurts' style of play would translate to the NFL. Frankly, Jalen Hurts was a great athlete, but didn't have the arm talent or athleticism that other dual threat quarterbacks had, like Lamar Jackson. And Jackson himself was barely a first round pick to begin with. This just goes to show that production in college doesn't necessarily translate to being a high draft pick. Scouts overlook certain traits that Hurts possessed that go beyond the film, like his leadership. This is why Hurts was selected in the back half of the second round by the Eagles in the 2020 NFL Draft. Some people even thought this was a massive reach for the Eagles, especially considering Carson Wentz was coming off of another solid year. The Eagles could have addressed positions of need surrounding Wentz with talent, but instead drafted a third-string quarterback really high in the draft. But Jalen Hurts unsurprisingly moved up to the second-string quarterback just after week 2. And as we all know, the story went for Philly. Carson Wentz was having a really rough year in 2020. This was reminiscent of Jalen Hurts' college situation. When it seemed like he would have to wait a long time for his opportunity, he didn't have to wait long at all. He was once again thrown into the spotlight in week 13. Hurts finished out the week 13 game throwing a pick, a touchdown, and threw for 109 yards, which wasn't great, but also wasn't bad for a debut. He finished the year as a starting quarterback and had some ups and downs, but Philadelphia realized that they might have something with Jalen Hurts. In the offseason prior to the 2021 season, the Eagles fired Doug Peterson and hired new head coach Nick Sirianni, and after Hurts was named the starter that year, fans realized that it was a new era in Philadelphia. In 2021, Hurts started all but one game due to an ankle injury, but finished the year with 26 total touchdowns to 9 interceptions. In a year where he easily could have struggled as his first year as a starter, he had a pretty solid season. He led Philadelphia to a playoff appearance where he uncharacteristically turned the ball over 3 times in a loss to the Tom Brady Buccaneers. So far, it looked like the NFL knew what Jalen Hurts was. He was a solid game manager who had a special ability to use his legs, had an average arm, and he mostly took care of the football. These are all the makings of an average starter in the NFL. But his 2022 season is what took him from just a decent starter to a great starter in the NFL. His 2022 season in Philadelphia was his NFL equivalent to his 2019 season in Oklahoma. The same way he finished second in Heisman voting, he was elected to his first Pro Bowl in 2022 and came second in MVP voting. This was the year Hurts made the unlikely jump. When people look back at how this guy's career turned out, they're going to point to this 2022 season as the year where he made the unlikely jump that most other guys don't make. He went from a decent starter to a great to borderline elite level starter. Behind the backs of a great defense, an unstoppable goal line play, and an elite wide receiver duo, the Eagles were poised for success in 2022. They took this newfound winning formula all the way to the Super Bowl. But this time, it wasn't like the 2017 National Championship. Hurts wasn't about to have that type of performance again. Instead, this time, Jalen Hurts put together the game of his life.
Has them on the move. He is going deep. He's got Devontae Smith out of bounds at the 1. They push, they sneak, and they're in for the touchdown. They're down 35-33.
Hey, we're going for 2.
Hurts is going to run. He rolls, and he is in, and we're tied.
It was one of those things where probably whoever had the ball last was going to be in a good situation.
Eagles played with everything they had.
when you see the red and yellow.
Unfortunately for Hurts, the Eagles infamously lost the Super Bowl by 3 points. But people made the argument that Jalen Hurts outplayed the best quarterback in the league in Patrick Mahomes. He had over 370 total yards and 4 total touchdowns, 3 of those coming on the ground. If it weren't for him losing a fumble in the second quarter, people might be looking at Jalen Hurts right now as a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. But at the time, there was a different conversation going on. Would the Eagles be able to put themselves in this position again? In a position to potentially get redemption from this year and have a shot at winning the Super Bowl? Jalen Hurts found himself in a similar situation as he did in college once again. From randomly starting a game to starting in the biggest stages that football had to offer in just the span of a few years. But this time, not playing well wasn't an option for Hurts anymore, as he signed a 4-year, $255 million extension with the Eagles that offseason. But unfortunately, just like in college, it was his own poor performance that made people start to doubt him. 2023 was a really strange year for the Eagles. They started the year off great, with Hurts picking up where he left off. But injuries started piling up for the Eagles, and just like in college, when the weight of the team was on his shoulders, it looked like he wasn't able to rise to the occasion. Hurts struggled the second half of that year, and unsurprisingly, the Eagles flamed out of the playoffs after not looking like themselves for the latter half of the year. Injuries and poor coaching were big reasons for this catastrophic fall, but when things started to go south and Hurts needed to make more plays, he wasn't able to make them either. He was selected to his second straight Pro Bowl, but the discourse on Hurts began again. Is he the guy to lead this Eagles team to a Super Bowl? Is his ceiling high enough? People were overlooking the additions that the Eagles made to their roster in the 2023 offseason, which made them a contender for the following year. But people were also still overlooking Jalen Hurts. At this point, people figured that Jalen Hurts wasn't going to be able to put this team on his back. But people were even starting to question if this guy had the ability to protect the ball or make the right plays when they mattered. In 2024, Jalen Hurts mastered this skill. The ability to make big plays with his limited pass attempts, but also minimize mistakes. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about where things go from here. Everyone knows the story of this season. Jalen Hurts put together a strong 2024 season, and with arguably the best roster in Eagles franchise history, they went on to demolish just about every single obstacle that came in their way, en route to a dominant Super Bowl victory, and Jalen Hurts won his first Super Bowl MVP. Hurts, at just 26 years old, has accomplished nearly everything that a quarterback has to accomplish. Quite frankly, Jalen Hurts might not find himself in MVP conversations for the rest of his career. He has found himself in a position with the best running back in the league and the best O-line in the league. And when it comes to the regular season, Hurts is never going to be asked to do too much. But where Hurts has improved drastically since his college days is the ability to turn it on in big games. He protects the ball well, and with the incredible distraction that Saquon Barkley is, he isn't afraid to make big-time throws in big-time games. This season, he's mastered the ability to do exactly what the team needs him to do, whether that's throw the ball 15 times or 40 times. Jalen Hurts is the epitome of what a Super Bowl winning quarterback is. He's one of the best leaders in the NFL, and despite never being thought of as an elite throwing talent, he's always found himself in positions to win games. Jalen Hurts will never be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow, but Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts, and that's always going to be more than good enough to win games at the highest level in the NFL. This was the unbelievable rise of Jalen Hurts. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more videos like this, hit the like button. Let me know in the comment section below what you think, but I'll see you all in the next video.
Just quantify my work. Just quantify the work that I put in. I don't really like to look at the results. Never like to look at the results, just the process of getting better. You know, it's truly, you can look back and say that there are so many things that could motivate me and drive me to want more and to be the best, and why do I just keep getting up and going and going and going? But I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion.